echoing. Influence. Tradition's meniscus floats him. The wind shrouds him taut like a film. Ensconced, his hand tests their currents, disrupting flows of thought with his own. His balance overwrought, growing, overflowing banks, he laps the tides in flux, held. He cries for help, were drained of their weight, and his body was dragged below the surging river's surface. Its speed had beckoned him, its violence had enticed him, its roar had soothed him, booming like blood in the womb. Now it buffeted him, knocked him under, and he blacked out. He awoke, staring up at the water's roughened skin as if he were looking upon his own eyelids in a dream. He could hear nothing beyond the low thrumming of his heartbeat and of the water that plugged his ears. The surface danced with iridescent dreamlines which strung the beating sun into beams that beckoned downwards. All else beyond was blurred into hues of green and sky blue. Like embers fizzing out into the darkness, forms flickering in and out of his peripheral vision. Looking up, the river's surface raged past him faster than the depths to which he had now plunged. Falling deeper, he saw not one but several streams surge through the river's body, each coursed by according to its own sense of time, resting and kneading its neighbors like lava drifts. Occasionally, one would flow into and disrupt another, the two exploding outwards, striking new paths, hurling their detritus past him to be carried off by other time streams. He plucked one dark form, a rusted sexton. Another swipe produced a Cycladic statuette. Two currents clashed above him, and suddenly fragments of Japanese pots tussled with crushed milk cartons within his grasp. Each burst exposed the remnants of a river's former courses and travellers, all folded within the palimpsest of a bed and its waves. The river had clung to his breath now for a while. As it nestled within his lungs, he felt calm. He could feel his flesh shed its solidity and disperse through the river's underwater roots, through its pathways, slipping past the flotsam and jetsam, tumbling out of jet streams until his blood was no longer anything but another trinket with which the banks drew themselves. His father woke up with a start, cupped by the tepid shore, convinced that an angel had flown above his head. I daydream of Roger Deacon. His palms thrust him forward, cut the waterline, dowsing rivers between their words, his body a Y. Behind and underneath, understanding ripples out like brainwaves, his arm dissolving. Confluence. Walking through the woods, feel the connections between things. The oaks cast their roots deep down into the ground. Moss and lichen grow upon their bark. Birds roost in their branches, and in winter the trees surrender their leaves to the soil in tribute. Strolling past their towering trunks, which bear deep trenches as individual as palm lines, envision the cathedral within. Columns holding aloft the celestial ceiling, ensuring our connection with God. Offshoots thrust out sideways to form the rafters above. Vines arching over the central aisle. Birds echoing phrases from one birch to another. But feel further still, roots interlacing beneath the surface, tickling streams, forking the paths of ants, leaves drawing out the night air, collecting afterthoughts in dewdrops in which, by morning, they see themselves distilled, warped, only then to drop and feed back into themselves through the soil. Within the woods, time knows not whether it is coming or going, for as everything feeds into everything else, no past passes by without both a present and a future tumbling out. No stream runs straight, against which time can conceive of its path. As the wood's arteries sprawl outwards, their consequences rippling out beyond the bounds of branches, curbed only by the outer extent of life, so too your own arteries extend beyond their reach, unknowingly pumping blood into the soil, holes, anthills and tubers, bird calls and waterfalls, ice caps and tree sap that seep outside of sight, falling out of entities to flow yet again into others. So too your breath is bound to the breath of these trees. Their paths inscribe themselves through you as you navigate through them. You are a vital organ, fleshy, villous, a conduit for flows both in and out, its heartbeat echoing throughout. My dream of the self is breathing without. Inwards, rain. Waterlogged, I swim. My arms bleed their ink as their pores, the pass of parts, intimate the whole out of the cell wall. I wish. Become a membrane, siphoning roots. Every connection begets a miscommunication. With every message sent, I wait to discern your face through the clearing smoke. We have already entwined our roots in so many ways that are concealed from us. pick up any single thread, and we would find it zigzagging across our flesh like valleys upon the rock. Were we to unstitch ourselves, we would have to prise off the hills of skin that quilt that thread upon our bodies. The maps that we had drawn up of each other would hitherto be useless. Our unstitching would leave a no-man's land of painful craters that would weather to form innumerable scars. Our words would ricochet, lead heavy, within those fresh trenches. Our conflicts would become vacuous, built like sandbags upon nothing but turgid, muddy soil. Despite our intricate maps, our magnitude cannot be transcribed by the mind. Our score would be erratic at best. Your touch echoes too much upon my skin. Trying to know you feels like describing a mountain. I can only manage oblique glances. At any point upon your height, half of you evades my sight. We act and react disjointed. We are asymmetrical. We are wrinkled, perforated, open. We are incongruent stones brought together by the chaotic currents of wind and water. Every miscommunication begets a connection. The trees, they have dimmed outside, as if sandblasted by sunlight, sinking into deep shades of sable until they bring to mind the chaotic spindling of nerves shorn from God. Their signals faint, their hands aloft, surrendering. We have yet to start upon the peak. Within the stone lies the first step, suspended, in which I can distinguish just about the veins and crags of the slope. Yet my mind violently oscillates between seeing the stone in the mountain or the mountain in the stone. It refuses to settle, for as singular as the stone may seem, its sinews surge with waves of steps and seas. Curls and licks of storms eddy within the rock, shooting up and around its form, inviting our first footfall. You, having spent your life intimately knowing the range, taught me that mountains also have an inside. They too make sounds, resonate with the steps that patter upon their surfaces, whistle the whittling whir of water, echoing the world outside within them. They too seem to dream. And so, in the same way with these stones, nature not only reflects itself in miniature, but in doing so narrates its own stories of how the world has happened upon it, how the land has chanced upon itself. For the natural world, like our own, is a world in friction with itself. Great wars of tectonic plates, conspiracies of wind and water against the great earth, kept in motion by fire's watchful furnace. But, as the inside rubs up against the outside, the self, like a mountain range, like the hills upon our calloused fingers, is slowly sparked into existence. We sounded our first steps upon the stone. Thank you.